GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where we bring you the best of crypto so you're always the smartest one at the dinner table. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton. It's Friday, April the 18th. And I know, like me, that a lot of y'all are invested in Ethereum. Yeah, it's been a rough few years, but I remain bullish. I remain long-term bullish, especially given the fundamentals, incredibly strong fundamentals when juxtaposed to the lowest sentiment really in crypto. It feels like the FUD is just off the charts. That really actually just continues to make me more bullish. So today's episode is all about the creator of Ethereum. I'm talking about Vitalik Buterin. Everybody knows him. We're joined today by Zach and Chris, two award-winning documentary filmmakers who recently released their new film titled Vitalik, an Ethereum Story. What's it like to travel with a billionaire like Vitalik who carries all of his stuff in a 40-liter backpack? Why did Vitalik create Ethereum? How did he create Ethereum when he was only 19 years old? What happened in Vitalik's early life? What are the stories that led him to this incredible ability to build tech at such a young age? There's some wild stories from his early childhood that'll blow you away. And how does Vitalik see his role in the Ethereum Foundation, and how does he balance the trade-off between decentralized versus centralized decision-making? These are all questions that we jump into in today's episode. As we always say, if you are investing in an asset, it is the best thing to do is one of the best things to do is to understand the team behind that asset. And that's what today's episode is all about. Now, before we jump in, if you are going to be at Consensus or in Toronto or Permissionless in New York in May or in June, so will I, and the rest of the Milk Road team are going to be at both. So we've got a meetup, free beer. Come hang out with all the Milk Road community. Hit the link in the show notes to see details on the meetup and sign up. Today's episode is brought to you by MoonPay. Trade crypto fee-free, fast, and on your terms. It's also brought to you by Coinshift, powering top crypto treasuries with their yield-bearing stablecoin CSUSDL. Without further ado, let's jump in and hear from the boys. Zach, Chris, welcome to the Milk Road Show. Great to have you guys today. Let's jump in. Amazing film that you guys have made about possibly the most interesting man in the world. Like, I don't know if anybody is more fascinating than Vitalik. I want to start with a very direct question that has been on a lot of people's minds recently, and then we'll get into a lot of the stories of the film. Vitalik wasn't at the White House recently when there was the crypto summit. That really stands out in an interesting way and sort of juxtaposes him against a lot of other crypto leaders. Well, in your view, why wasn't Vitalik at the crypto summit, and what does that say about him in comparison to other leaders in the crypto space?
Yeah, thanks for having us. And I think that gets at the heart of this film, right? Vitalik identifies as a builder and a thinker and a writer. And I'm not surprised that he wasn't at the White House. Like, that's just not how he sees his role in this space. And I mean, the film, like you said, Vitalik is a fascinating person and story to understand about, because at a great example, perfect example of this. At 7 years old, Vitalik's favorite toy was his computer and Excel specifically. And we talked to his dad in the film, and his dad pulls out his iPad and he shows us a 100-page document that Vitalik made at 7 years old that has graphs, has descriptions of this world called about bunnies, the magical world of bunnies. And it's called the Encyclopedia of Bunnies, a crazy thing for a 7-year-old to create. And at 7 years old, Vitalik's already world building, right? Like, that's what Vitalik loves to do. He loves to think huge. He loves to bring in philosophy and math and, technology to create a new paradigm for the world. And so that's where Vitalik's sweet spot is. And it's not surprising, Vitalik's weaknesses and kind of difficulties is more on the leadership side, more on the he doesn't like conflict. And so in this film, you get to see that unfold from, 7 years old to 27 years old.
To add to that, I think he's so committed to decentralization, as a lot of you know. I think that's been a principle of his, that's a core value to how and the way in which he's built Ethereum. And I think for him, he doesn't always see his role as being the one who should be front and center. So yes, he's a builder and a thinker first and foremost, but also he's been trying to design the system around him to reflect those values. And I think that comes with a lot of challenges. And we've seen it and we follow it over a couple years in the film of those challenges that come up when you do not have that centralized leader at the center of Ethereum. It can be a messier process doing something like the merge that we follow throughout the film, of what it's like to actually coordinate across hundreds of developers in an ecosystem to implement something as massive as the merge and upgrading Ethereum to be, 99% more energy efficient. These are not easy tasks to take on. They're hard enough, even if you did have a Mark Zuckerberg type leader in a centralized exchange. This is something even more challenging. And so, yes, I'm not surprised personally, and it's part of this is part of what makes Vitalik really interesting to us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much to unpack here, and I think for all of our listeners, talking about Ethereum right now is tough because Ethereum has had a basically 5 years of being flat when a lot of other cryptos have had quite a rise. Now, obviously, everything's back down again. There's still a lot of our listeners are still going to believe long term in Ethereum, and for a lot of good reasons. I still believe long term in Ethereum. I am still heavily invested in it, as is a lot of the Milk Road team and a lot of other well-respected. I'm definitely not the only one out there, and it's the second largest market cap in crypto. What's so interesting about what you guys in this conversation that we're going to have today is you spent so much time with him, and I've never spent time with him, I've never met him, and he's so fascinating. What's it like to hang out with a billionaire like Vitalik, who's not your typical billionaire at all, I would assume?
Okay, well, Vitalik is the perfect documentary subject because he is so allergic to the spotlight. So it makes him so authentic, but it's also very difficult to film with someone who is so allergic to the spotlight. So, we made this film in a really cool way. We raised almost $2 million from an NFT crowdfund in 2021 that allowed us basically the resources to follow Vitalik all around the world. So we would get a call, and be like, hey, meet me in Ukraine. Hey, meet me in Montenegro at this pop-up city that I'm about to create. Like these different things. And we would literally just have to find our crew, get on a plane, and go meet up with Vitalik, who quite literally lives out of a 40-liter backpack, truly gets $5 haircuts in Chinatown.
These stories are real. These stories are real.
Oh, beyond real. I mean, it's just I thought it was just this narrative that was being fabricated by the Ethereum community, but there's actually you actually in the film get to see so much more of that. You get to see what's in his backpack. He'll pull out a metal Steve Wozniak business card, or he'll have just random things that, all this stuff, or Shiba Inu pants. That's so Vitalik. I don't know. It was really cool to be able to spend that time for sure.
Let's be honest. Everything in crypto comes with fees. But here's a nice surprise. MoonPay Balance doesn't take a cut. You heard that right. No MoonPay fees when you buy or sell crypto with your MoonPay Balance. Top up with dollars, pounds, or euros, then you're ready to trade instantly whenever the market moves. And if you change your mind, withdraw your cash. No MoonPay fee there either. Simple, fast, ready when you are. Check it out at milkroad.com/MoonPay. Disclaimer, network and ecosystem fees apply. It's just so crazy that, anybody else, I mean, maybe not anybody, but 99.9% of other people who became a billionaire like Vitalik would have yachts and big houses and all these other things. And here you have this guy who doesn't have any of that stuff, nor does he seem to care about that stuff. One thing I think is really interesting is understanding the motivations of somebody and their what makes them tick, their why for existing. And I feel like Vitalik seems to have, and if you watch the film, you get this, a very strong why. He is very purposeful. He's very intentional, which is what allows him to be so authentic, as you said, Zach, so unique. Take us back. Give us a little bit of the upbringing from what you guys learned through this film. What makes Vitalik who he is? And I know you told a little bit about the bunny encyclopedia story, but talk to us a little bit more about the initial sort of what you thought stood out as the monumental moments in his early life.
Yeah, I mean there are so many, but maybe I'll start with one where we spent a lot of time with his dad and his family. And his dad talked to us, both his parents talked to us about, their decision to leave Russia when Putin was starting to come into power and go to Canada, and their fear of what was happening within Russia at that time of this centralized authoritarian regime. And I think, looking back at, again, Vitalik was around 6 or 7 at the time, and that's left a very lasting impression on him and his value system. So I think it is why he's so committed, or part of why he's so committed to decentralization, and has really informed some of those values for him. But I think what's been fun about the film is we've been filming for a couple of years with Vitalik, and in many ways, the last few years have been these very formative ones for him, where he's really grown up. I mean, he's been forced into the spotlight of this as a sort of de facto leader of $1 trillion industry. And he's had to wrestle with what his role is in that, how he speaks up or doesn't. He's had a lot of challenges with some of the more overt gambling behavior around Bored Ape Yacht Club that obviously people know about. And he ended up becoming very vocal around Ukraine and the war with Russia, to be able to use his platform and his voice to try to have crypto have a positive impact on the war in Ukraine. And I think, these key moments that we've sort of followed throughout the film allow you a lens to understand his values over the last, as he's grown up. I mean, he created Ethereum at 19, right? He was a kid, and watching this growth and watching him form those values is what's super entertaining throughout the film, and really has been so fascinating for us.
How old is he now?
Oh man, it's a great question.
He's about to turn 30, or if not, he just turned 30.
Just turned 30.
Jeez. And he's still he's not even 30 yet, or he just turned 30. Like, he's still so young. Oh my gosh.
I know.
You brought up Ukraine. I want to touch on that because that's also a great part of the film that really dives into we don't look, for better or worse, we don't highlight a lot of the use cases of crypto. I mean, even you guys being able to make this film because you raised $2 million using NFTs, which, look, NFTs is a word that nobody likes to hear in investing because we all got burned in the last 4 years. But even that, like crowdsourcing, being able to make a film as a result of crypto and raise money from all around the world, like those are big deals. But let's talk about Ukraine, because Ethereum allowed some things to happen when the Ukraine-Russia war broke out that, quite frankly, probably could not have happened if it wasn't for Ethereum and for blockchain. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's really personal, especially for Vitalik. Vitalik has Ukrainian ancestry. He grew up in Russia, left the country when Putin took power. And it also came at a time when Vitalik was questioning, like, what is the real world value of Ethereum? Like, what is the real use cases here that affects people? Because Vitalik is a tech optimist, right? Vitalik believes that when crypto is used well, it creates real value in people's lives. And so, Vitalik really wanted to support Ukrainians as soon as the war broke out, and he used his voice in a way that he's not usually very political. He really advocated to support Ukraine, and the crypto community, not just Ethereum, but the whole crypto community, really rallied immediately when Ukraine was invaded. And in those first hours, this became really clear to me when I was with Vitalik in Ukraine, hearing from the vice prime minister of Ukraine. He was describing that when the banking system was in chaos in Ukraine, they relied on crypto to get funds to the front, to get funds to charities, to get, over $130 million was raised in the first hours of the invasion. And, without crypto, that wouldn't have been possible. While the world was kind of thinking about how to respond and figuring out how to get resources there, like, the crypto community immediately responded, and according to Ukrainian officials, saved thousands of lives in the military and civilians. And seeing Vitalik take that in Ukraine, in Kyiv, in a bomb bunker, this hackathon bomb bunker that you see in the film, is a really emotional moment, right? Like, for someone like Vitalik, who invented this, Ethereum, who is this world builder in the abstract finally gets to see this thing being used for good is pretty important, I think, for Vitalik, really believing and continuing to have energy to put into this space.
There can be such a disconnect that happens between investors and the assets that they hold, which is not necessarily a good thing. You should have strong conviction and really believe in your assets and do your research, but you can really get that disconnect, and you can forget why it was created, and you can forget the people behind it. And Vitalik still, as you guys said, whether he likes it or not, he still really holds this crown and wears this crown of all eyeballs on him. And not just for Ethereum, even for crypto in general. He's been on the cover of Time. He came in at a time, he was at an age where he just, for better or worse, he got the spotlight, and it's forced him to figure out how to handle that. I know that he speaks, and Chris, you said one of your favorite quotes of his before we recorded from the movie was about his views on speculation versus gambling and the financial incentive of crypto. Let's just chat a little bit. Can you remind us of what that quote is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did so many interviews and conversations with Vitalik, and we obviously asked so much about investing or about the financial side. And not surprisingly, he often just wanted to talk more about things that he was building, or different layer 2 protocols that he was designing, or solutions to problems that he saw within the ecosystem. But when we would push him on questions around investing or the financial side, he did have a great quote that we use in the middle of the film where he says, look, financial incentive is like a fire. You can use it to keep yourself warm, or you can use it to burn your house down. And at the time, he was really reflecting on how what he's done with Ethereum and crypto in general is people are empowered to use it how they want, right? And it is a structure in that way. And some people decide to use it for things that might burn their house down or have real negative consequences on the world or on themselves and their own investments or stability. And some may use it for a use case like we were talking about here with Ukraine that's truly helping people. And I think that's the beauty and the curse of what happens when you empower people with a system like this.
Meet CSUSDL, the stablecoin built for institutions and DAOs. Don't just hold basic stablecoins, earn yield, all without compromising security. Backed by regulated real-world assets and secured with institutional-grade risk management by our friends at Steakhouse Financial, put your treasury cash to work, earning native yield and protocol rewards. Built by the team behind Coinshift, which is trusted to manage over $1 billion in business treasuries on-chain, including Aave, Gitcoin, and hundreds of leading institutions. CYCSUSDL is gaining traction at milkroad.com/Coinshift. And for better or for worse, usually when a founder creates a product or a business, it is the end result of that is not their original vision, right? Completely. You've got to pivot and change and adjust as you build. And that's for a centralized company, right? Now you have Vitalik trying to build a decentralized company, which, quite frankly, we don't really have many good examples or playbooks of how to do it. So he's kind of sailing the ship and, building it at the same time. And you also have this market that's sitting out there saying, hey, all we care about is number go up, right? Yeah. And who cares what the tech is, and who cares what the roadmap is, and blobs and sharding and L2s, they don't care about all of that language. So it is I don't envy the position how do you guys find that how does he handle all of this? Is he quite a calm person? You must have, throughout the film, I'm sure you saw him on days that were stressful and challenging, and things happen out in his life. Is he able to manage it all?
Yeah, I mean, Vitalik will tell you this himself. I mean, I'd say the majority of Vitalik's time, it doesn't matter if you're on a train to Ukraine, is him thinking about crypto. And then in the time that he's not thinking about crypto, he's either going for a run or playing chess. And you see chess a lot in the film, but that is what Vitalik's doing. And I think those moments of like playing chess or going for a run are like so critical in him staying sane in all of this. And yeah, there were really stressful times. I mean, especially in these moments, and you see in the film, there is a bit of a crypto winter. Like there's so much criticism levied at Vitalik. And I think in part of him growing up is realizing that like, that's part of a cycle. Like it's going to change. And he fully believes that, that the price will go up again. So he, after being through many crypto winters, I think Vitalik has been able to figure out how to live through that. And those are the difficult times, like you said. But in some ways, they're also the times where a lot of the like fluff is stripped out and a lot of the people can get down and build things. I mean, that's NFTs, DeFi, like those all came out of crypto winters. Like, it's an interesting moment for him. It's almost like things are a little quieter and he can.
I'm sure he prefers like the winters. He prefers the bear markets. Most builders do. Most builders hate bull markets, right? Because and let's be real, there is no other industry in the world where you, as a founder, also have shareholders immediately who yell at you all, and not only are they shareholders, they're internet degen shareholders, right? Like they're not like your dad who's like, oh, I don't use the internet or anything like that. They're like gonna like meme the shit out of your Twitter and make you feel like crap, right? So I don't, I don't envy any crypto founder that also has launched a token, let alone the biggest, like Vitalik.
We interview Tim O'Reilly in the film, who's famous for actually coining the term Web 2.0, and he talks a lot about like any of these technological markets. What happens is you get all of this money pouring in and a lot of hype to figure out what really matters, right? And you're searching, you're trying a lot of things, and then it's in these bear market moments when everything gets stripped away that you then see what is lasting. And, I think crypto is going through those cycles as any new technology does. And AI is doing the same thing. We see it with these hype cycle markets. And hopefully at the end of the day, the stuff that we're left with is what matters. And you go back to the .com boom and bust, in 90+% of those companies didn't make it. But what lasted was something truly beautiful that has revolutionized the world. And you just never really know until you strip away some of that noise. And I think that perspective in the film from people like Tim O'Reilly or Vitalik, who've been through a lot of these cycles, I think is helpful for any investor listening too, who wants to think about the long term. A lot of crypto investors are very young as well. And like, this is a long-term, you are investing for the long term, whether or not you want.
You don't want to admit that though. You don't want to
admit that or not.
You don't want to admit that because you want the money now, right?
Yeah.
Like you want it now, and all you see on social media is some influencer saying, look at me. I got a Lambo. I made $100,000, right? And you think that it's easy, and it's not. It's obviously, it's actually incredibly hard. And
we're all prone to the FOMO. Like that's real. Like no judgment here at all. We've all gone into meme coins, but it is, I mean, I think when it comes down to something like Ethereum, this is just the beginning in some ways. Like,
Talk a little bit about Vitalik's role within Ethereum. Like when you guys are seeing him, it's really tough to understand like I feel like he's a robot. I actually question if he is human. I don't know if you guys give me your take.
Wait, Vitalik is the funniest person that we have spent time with. So he is, if you spend time with him, he is not a robot. We had a hilarious time spending, hanging out with Vitalik and getting to make this film, and just seeing the little connections that his mind makes with the world around you. It's a privilege to have gotten to see how somebody else's mind works in that way, because it is a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, in showing Vitalik this film, right, scariest moment in any doc filmmaker's life is when you show the subject of your film, the participant of your film, like the film. But like Vitalik's favorite moments are like when he's making breakfast in the film or talking about tea. I mean, Vitalik's mind works in wild ways. Like he'll give you a whole lesson about like the history of the word tea versus chai, like chai with it, like just
How does he
randomly,
even know that stuff?
like that's
Yeah.
the opening of the film, right? So it's, yeah, he has a great sense of humor.
Yeah, or another great moment, we're walking around a garden with him and it's ask him a simple question like, how are you feeling or what are you thinking about? And he goes off, well, photosynthesis is actually the process where you see, and it goes off on a whole beautiful tangent that just shows the capacity that his mind has for thinking and world building and understanding systems.
It's incredible. It's not where my mind is never on photosynthesis.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah, I don't know.
that's not a topic my mind goes to.
And I
Okay.
think honestly, Vitalik probably thinks we're really dumb because we would ask these questions over and over again to try to synthesize these big concepts down to a digestible narrative and an entertaining film, right? Like we're filmmakers. This film is fun. It's entertaining. It's thought provoking. Like it's a journey to go on. It's not a podcast. And I think we had to always
hopefully something that you can send to your mom that she would actually understand, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the goal of this film, is to be on Apple, be on Prime. Like it's something that the rest of the world can finally kind of engage with, because I don't think that's happened yet with the crypto world.
Yeah. So right before, you go home for Thanksgiving or something and you need to tell your family what you're doing and what you invest in, this would be a great film just to send in advance.
That's right.
Before
Yeah.
you get home, and it'll help assuage some of the questions that'll come around the family dinner table.
Well, and it's a great point, because I do think this film is for everybody. It's not just for crypto people. I also think this film is very entertaining. It's not a typical like educational based podcast. It's a entertaining film. You guys did a fantastic job making it. And we really are in a position where one of the biggest, I mean, there's a lot of issues in crypto. There's a lot of great things too. I say that as if it's all doom and gloom, but one of the biggest issues is marketing of crypto. Crypto has a horrible reputation outside of crypto. It is still seen as a scam. It is still seen very poorly by most, because that's what the media likes to tell. It's, great clickbait, right? This person lost millions of dollars is way more exciting than this helped Ukraine raise money. Unfortunately, it's just the truth, right? You guys are in media, you understand. So it certainly is a film for everybody, which is we really need that. So shout out to you guys for making it. I want to go back for a second. You mentioned tomorrow's episode that we're putting out tomorrow is an episode that is called, I don't remember the exact title, but it's something like 99% of crypto is trash, and how do you find the 1%? Because it is true, right? It is true. Like I'm in crypto every day. I've been working it full time for 5 years, and I can confidently say that it is mostly garbage. It's mostly absolute garbage. That is very challenging to work and invest in a space that has so much garbage. And the only reason it has so much garbage is because it is so easy to be a grifter in this space. It's very easy to come in and capitalize on it and monetize trash, basically, through meme coins or through whatever. There's many different ways to do it. You don't even need to be a scammer necessarily to do it. You can do it without being like complete absolute fraud, right? So it's a challenging space to be in for sure.
And that's why hopefully the film's just refreshing to watch too. It's a different side of, that 1% that you were.
Yeah, I think, we're not here to like market crypto, but I think ultimately we're also here not to like tell the same story that's been told a million times. Like, I think what's refreshing is that there are people that really believe in the utility of crypto and like see that in the real world, in Argentina, in Ukraine, in all these places where, like, as an American, it's actually it's much harder to understand the real value of this stuff. But when you live in a society where like truly the government doesn't work, or you're in a war, like it becomes much more relevant or much more apparent, like why you'd be using this thing. And when you're, so yeah, I think hopefully you can see that a little bit in the film.
Well, on my team, we have people in Argentina and in Russia who the one in Russia, we legitimately could not pay her anymore once the sanctions came on. If it wasn't for crypto, we literally couldn't pay her money, right? Like, and then the ones in Argentina, they're so happy that we can pay them in crypto, because if I paid them in Argentinian pesos, it's inflating at like 50% a month or something like that. And as you said, it is, I think a lot of the real use cases of crypto, I mean, the biggest one so far being stable coins, that's the non-speculative use cases, are not so relevant to the developed world. And so it's harder for the developed world to get that. Okay, before we wrap, I want to give you guys one last chance to share any stories that we missed or anything that stood out in the making of this film. Oh, actually, you know what? The one question I did want to ask was, did you see him interact with other Ethereum leaders? Because that is one part that I think our audience would be very interested in. Is like Ethereum, there's this constant comparison that is made in crypto between Ethereum and Solana, right? Like they're the two. And Solana was very much built as a startup, right? Much more centralized type of startup, centralized vision, centralized power. They are slowly decentralizing, whereas Ethereum took the opposite approach: decentralization first, fully decentralized. And so it's you can very easily compare them. And recently, which I know you haven't been spending time with Vitalik necessarily recently, but recently the big news and the big talk has been Ethereum's leadership and who is the leader, and there's been a change in leadership and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just curious, did you get any insight to what role Vitalik sees himself playing in the Ethereum Foundation or others, and how he thinks about leadership?
Yeah, I mean, actually, Xiao Wei, who is one of the leaders of the Ethereum Foundation now, is in the film. In the background, you'll see her in there. So you can check that out. Yeah, I mean, we spent time with a lot of different leaders. We had like 300 hours of footage. It's really hard to shrink that down to 90 minutes. A lot of stuff got lost, but we actually made 5 short films. If you go to ethereumfilm.xyz, you can watch a film on Uniswap. You can watch a film on Gitcoin. You can watch a film on the Constitution DAO. Like all these moments that are like so fascinating. A lot of the kind of like big leaders in the space speak in those interviews. So you can actually have a bit of more of a sense of who else is really influential in the space for sure.
Final things. I mean, I think we just hope you'll watch the film, let it speak for itself, come to your own conclusions about what you make of it, what you make of Vitalik. And I think we need to understand the creators and the leaders behind this technology, to understand where it's going in the future, what the positive and negative consequences will be, and where we're going to put our money. I mean, I know, again, so many of you are investors. Like, we got to ask the questions and be curious. And I think you'll be a better investor after you watch the film.
100%.
So check it out. Apple Prime, it's all over the place. You can find it online.
Apple Prime are the 2 best platforms to go to watch
Apple
it.
Prime, and then certain international territories, Vimeo on demand. But if you just go to ethereumfilm.xyz, you'll see all the links.
Awesome. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. Zach, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. And truly shout out to you guys from the whole crypto community for making this film and spending years of your life making it. Although I am kind of jealous that you got to hang out with Vitalik so much.
Not a bad gig, right?
Not a bad gig at all.
Took a few years off our lives, but we're better. We're better for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, and everybody have yourselves a wicked awesome day. Thanks for listening to today's episode, y'all. Really appreciate your time. Before I let you go, if you are doing any trading over the Easter long weekend, which I know you might have some time, you might be doing some swaps, you might be rebalancing your portfolio, maybe moving out of some assets and moving into some different assets, especially as the macro conditions are changing. Well, if you are doing that, please check out Milk Road Swap. Give it a chance. If you haven't used Milk Road Swap, I highly recommend. It is our DEX, which we built on top of Cow Protocol on Ethereum and then Radium over on Solana. It's got some of the lowest fees in the space. Why? Because we didn't build this to take money off it. We built this to offer a great product because we know how difficult swapping can be and how a lot of the other players out there, especially the centralized one, take really big fees. So I really recommend you're not trading there. Check out Milk Road Swap. If you have any questions, let us know. Link is in the show notes. Have yourselves a wicked awesome weekend, y'all. Thanks for listening in. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.